full 60 minutes. They play hard the entire game, including the start. They come out fast and they start fast. And it's like they're always ready to play, like they're born ready to play. I think that's been the biggest factor.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in on this Wednesday, the 16th. Dennis Fithian with you here, Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. That was Jim Harbaugh, Michigan head coach, earlier this week, talking about his defense and that they're born ready, come out fast, and that they were born ready. Now, I was at that news conference. I'd say, Jim, I don't know if they've come out fast every time, but man, the second half, they've been spectacular. Oh, but they've been pretty good overall. You look at the numbers, and they're as good as anyone in the country. In fact, they're the best against the run, and they're top 5 in scoring. The numbers, which I'll be producing a lot tomorrow and Friday about nationally and in the Big Ten and everything else. It's a fun task if you're a Michigan fan to go through where Michigan ranks and this and that, because they rank really, up there in almost everything except passing. But everything else, they are right there. We're right here, ready to get things underway, and we welcome everyone in. You might want to know what we're talking about today. Well, we're going to talk about Michigan football. We are live weekdays at 1 o'clock, talking about the latest in Michigan sports. We got both football and basketball on tap today. You want to know everything that's going on right away up to the second with Michigan sports. We've got something here for you. It's the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Get 50% off your first year. Get full access today. Use that promo code MBR1 year. That's MBR1 year. Now, today, we are going to be talking about the basketball team. They're in action tonight in Brooklyn, New York. They'll be taking on Pitt, and they'll be playing 2 games in as many nights. As win or lose, they've got another game tomorrow in the Legends Classic. We'll discuss everything going on the hardwood with the Maize and Blue. Also, we'll look ahead to Saturday and tell you what games are worth watching this weekend. But we'll start out with the college football playoff rankings. Those came out last night, as everybody knows, in between the basketball game, although Michigan State and in Kentucky, they weren't cooperating. They kept pushing it back, single overtime, double overtime, and college basketball going into double overtime, and everybody waiting to get out there on the court, waiting for the college football rankings. But they came out, not any huge surprises for the top 4. Oh, yeah, before I get to that, I wanted to mention this. This news came out over the last 24, 48 hours. Michigan's going to lose a great one here. A part of their staff, Biff Poggi, U of M's associate head coach, will take over Charlotte as head coach after this year. If Charlotte has a football team, who knew? And Biff is going to take over. And, Biff Poggi, when you start talking about last year and this year, I don't know what you want to call it, resurgence, Michigan breaking through. I'll call it Michigan just breaking through. Biff Poggi's been a huge part of that. Biff Poggi is somebody that specifically, he was a coach out east and where Blake Corum went to high school. And he was also, you may remember, late in the summer when Yabi Oki was out there. It was Biff Poggi who said, yeah, I know Oki, and I will vouch for him. And, Michigan took the word of Poggi on Oki, and things have worked out really well for the Wolverines. Also, there was some when Poggi was in high school, in the high school ranks, longtime high school coach, he looked down and with his team, what they did, they zagged when people were zigging. And it had to do with IMG and this, beautiful academy down in Florida where all these top prospects are going. And, the way that they were playing, he would put different periods in for his team constructed, against what the trend was. And Michigan, I think Michigan has always done you listen to former players and I don't know, maybe not against with Rodriguez or with Hoke in there, but I would think that they would have even done something with those guys in there. But it gets more attention now because you've got Jim Harbaugh, the ultimate Michigan man, and Michigan, is 1-0 in their last game against Ohio State. The point here is that Michigan put something in practice, every practice. In the spring, they have a Michigan period or Ohio State period. I don't know exactly what they call it, but whatever they break their practices up into periods, and one of those periods is always dedicated to beating Ohio State. Whatever they do, whatever play that they want to run, unique for Ohio State, they work on it. They're working on it today. They worked on it yesterday. And, if the question was put to Jim Harbaugh, hey, Jim, how often do you think about or are you guys working on Ohio State? You know what Jim Harbaugh would say if he was being honest? Every day. Every day they're working on Ohio State. But Biff Poggi, congratulations to him. You have success. Other teams are going to come along. We know that. But Michigan is losing a really good one in Poggi. All right. I just wanted to mention that to all of you out there. The rankings come in: Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Tennessee, LSU. While I was watching the basketball game last night, Reese Davis comes on and, the Vitel's doing the state and Kentucky Wildcat game. And, Vitel's like, hey, what if Michigan loses? Could they get in? It was a question that everybody wanted to know that Vitel put to Reese Davis, who came on and was teasing the rankings coming out. And Reese Davis was like, Michigan's got a soft non-conference schedule. I don't think so, Dickie V. And then he said, wait, but what about Ohio State? And then Reese said, well, Ohio State's got a victory over Notre Dame, which looks better now, and Penn State. So his point was, Reese Davis, was that he didn't think Michigan would get in to the college football playoff if they lost to Ohio State. And that strength of schedule, yeah, that's what it is something, even though you lay out what Tennessee's and TCU's non-conference slate is, and they're a bunch of P5 or group of 5 teams, and they look as bad as Michigan's, but overall in the strength of schedule ranking, I have, if you're watching on the screen, out of the top 6, the team that has the best strength of schedule is LSU. After that, it is Georgia, who's number 1. It's TCU. I'm sorry. TCU is number 2 strength of schedule of the teams in the top 6 after LSU. Then Georgia. And then you have Ohio State, then Tennessee, and then Michigan. Out of the 6 teams, Michigan has a strength of schedule that is 82, and that's the worst out of these 6 teams. So that narrative is still there. And Boo Kerrigan, who heads up the committee, was asked specifically about the ranking of Ohio State and Michigan, because a lot of people, myself included, have it ranked Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, TCU. Whether it matters or not, Boo said that he looked at Michigan's best win, and it's against Penn State. Ohio State has a win against Penn State, and they have one against Notre Dame. That Notre Dame win against, the Fighting Irish in week 1 is why Ohio State is at number 2. Boo also indicated, no, it was Reese Davis that indicated that, hey, Ohio State could lose to Michigan and still get in there because they have a game that they would look at that boosts them up. Now, these numbers, 77, 82, these strength of schedules, these things are fluid. They change every week. And, however that comes down to it, we do know that as something that goes all the way back to the preseason. Michigan's playing a trash schedule. Michigan plays a bunch of bozos. And then college football fans would look at the SEC and, they only play 8 conference games and the Big Ten plays 9. And so they get to schedule 4 games, but 3 of the games for a lot of the teams in the SEC, they're a bunch of bozos too. So it looked like, look at these clowns. And then, look at these are Michigan's clowns. These are the SEC clowns. But Michigan got stuck with that. That is something that stuck with them. And when you look actually at the number of strength of schedule, it's there. So when you're thinking about contingency plans, when you're thinking about what if Michigan loses to Ohio State, do they have a chance? They do, but they have a very good chance that they will be left out. Now, just thinking about the insurance part of this, I went through it a little bit, the contingency plan if Michigan lost to Ohio State. And, the thing that I'm thinking about here is that one thing, like you say, well, Michigan has to beat Illinois this week. They have to beat Ohio State and they have to win the Big Ten. Then you can guarantee that they're in. And we all agree with that 100%. I don't think there would be one person out there that, you could put everything on it. Michigan, if they beat Illinois, Ohio State, and whoever's in the one of the, I think 4 teams, maybe even 5, that would be out. I think 4 out of the Big Ten West. Michigan will get in, guaranteed. Also, but when you look at that statement, what could be off is that Michigan really, they don't have to beat Illinois Saturday. Like in this, for instance, if Michigan lost to Illinois, but then came back and beat Ohio State, and then came back and beat whoever, maybe Illinois, who has the fewest amount of losses in all those Big West teams. And then if Michigan, beat Illinois in that situation, Michigan would be the Big Ten champ with 1 loss. I think that Michigan would get in. I think that's being pretty close to a guarantee as well. A 1-loss Michigan team, if they lost to Illinois, being the Big Ten champ, I think they could get in. You don't want to lose to Illinois coming up to Saturday because if they do that, you think that they'll probably lose to Ohio State. And the next thing you know, they've got 2 losses and this was a great season. It looked like it was going to go undefeated. And then the wheels came off at the end. So you don't want to lose to Illinois. But if you think about it, they actually could lose to Illinois and still have a really good chance to get into the college football playoff where you'd feel like they held their own destiny. It wouldn't be a complete guarantee because, who knows what would happen in the Big 12, the ACC, the Pac-12. But, if Michigan's 1 loss is against an Illinois team and Michigan's the Big Ten champ, they could easily be that team. Again, that's not something that you want, but it is something just to remember. The other things about the insurance plan or the contingency plan if Michigan loses to Ohio State is that if Michigan plays Ohio State and they just play a great game, close game, what happens, college football fans, everyone in the world is going to be watching Michigan, Ohio State. If you told me that you think it's going to break television records, ratings records, I would say, yeah, I see that. It's going to be a game of the century. It's going to be the game of the year in college football. And every single person is going to be watching this game. So let's just say it was a 35-34 instant classic and Michigan loses by 1 point at the end. The sentiment will change then for Michigan. There will be a lot of people saying, I want Michigan Ohio State to play again. We love this game. This is the greatest thing ever. Let's run it back. Would that be awesome? Rather than seeing, Clemson or, let's see it. One thing, you don't want any of these 1-loss conference champs in there. So if you are thinking about the contingency plans, let's see TCU lose a game. Let's see USC lose a game. They still have UCLA. Let's see LSU. You don't want them, even though they have 2 losses. You don't want that SEC champ. All about the SEC and what the committee and their allegiances. So you don't to ESPN. You don't want LSU winning the SEC. So you'd want TCU to lose. You want USC to lose. You want LSU to lose. And then you come down to the ACC title game. It's already locked in that it's going to be Clemson and North Carolina. Why don't we just have North Carolina, losing to NC State and then beating Clemson? So you just get rid of those guys altogether. So Let's get TCU, USC, LSU, Clemson, and North Carolina all to still lose a game. And, I think Michigan might be cooking then with one loss if they lost to Ohio State. You might not want to entertain the thought. It might not, and that's fine. I completely understand that. And that's a lot of what ifs. I had 2 weeks in the regular season, and then the third week in the championship game. That's a whole lot of. He said that's a lot of chaos. That's a lot of, and I agree with all of that. Oh, just go ahead if you're Michigan and control your own destiny and win all of the games. You see a lot of the things that have to happen to make it feel like it's really going to happen. Maybe not all of those have to happen where you still feel like they're in with a chance. And again, I think if you are going to lose I'm just going to, for a couple more seconds, just, put out that example. I know people don't like to hear about it, but if it was a game of the century and there would be a sentiment that people wanted to see it again, that could be huge for Michigan. Play really well, beat Ohio State, or if you don't beat Ohio State, play them down to the very end. It was a classic. I think that Michigan could get into that college football playoff anyways, if that happens. So, that's a lot of talk, that I just went through there. Let's see what people are thinking about it out there with all of it as we go to the instant feedback. If you're somebody, let's looking for the glasses around the top of my head. If you're out there and want to get involved in real time, go ahead and leave a message. We put your thoughts up on the screen, your feedback, and we talk about it during the show. Who else does that? What other Michigan show does that? Travis says, I think it's very likely TCU, LSU, and USC all lose. That leaves 3 spots with the loser of Michigan, Ohio State potentially getting in. That's pretty close to what I was talking about, Travis. I think you have to include the ACC in there. Account 22 is talking about both of them getting in. Yeah, you guys, like Jason, it's good to see Jason back here 2 days in a row. He was a little bit under the weather. Hopefully he's 100%. Let's see what some others are saying. Andre says if TCU and USC lose, both Michigan and Ohio State are in. Watch out, watch out. With all those scenarios that I put out there. So in case you have to, think about, some other teams that could potentially, screw you over. Steven says he doesn't care about the rankings. Beat Illinois, beat Ohio State, and we're either 1-2. Yeah, or beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten championship, and you're in as well. So there you go. Antoine, who, when he's not here, the coach, coming up with talking about Michigan's passing game and route trees and I think really auditioning to be on the Michigan staff. Maybe Harbaugh with Poggi heading down to Charlotte could hire Antoine. Not a bad idea, but Antoine spends some of his time, he likes it, hanging out with Ohio State fans and arguing with them. And he says these dummies try to say it's too cold for Michigan. I told them we're a team from up north where Santa Claus lives, and they couldn't handle it. Steven says, my wife went to Charlotte, but they didn't have a football program until after she graduated, but her fees helped start the program. There you go. I went to Charlotte one time to broadcast a basketball game for Michigan, the women's team. And I can remember going in and thinking, wow, it's Charlotte. I mean, this is basketball, Tobacco Road. Where's it at? Where's Tobacco Road? Charlotte's not on. That's Duke in North Carolina, but, Charlotte was, I don't remember seeing a football field out there, but that was 2004 or 5. So maybe they didn't have a football team then either. The unique thing about that trip, we flew on a charter out of Detroit same day. So we, we left at 8:00 in the morning, got there to the hotel, played a 7:30 game, and after the game took off. Same day, only time that's ever happened. Quite a flight plan. admittedly, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about Rod Marinelli, who was the coach of the Lions, who in the preseason decided that that's what he was going to do to really test his guys' mettle. He flew out and took on the Raiders. I think the Raiders went all the way, wasn't even in the same time zone, took the Lions out and flew same day. And, they got killed. Everybody's like, don't, flying screws with you. Your hydration, a lot of different things. You need that time, but Michigan got killed that day too. So, but nobody asked me what I thought about the flight plan. I just left that to the coaches. So that's just an aside that happens sometimes. I start thinking of things. Richard saying that Ohio State also works on Michigan every day. I think you're right about that. Stephen pointing out that with Michigan's soft non-conference schedule that UConn is bowl eligible. It's true. But, the committee will say something one week, and then this is what the experience has been like over the last 7 or 8 years. If you play this game, but they said this. They say whatever they want. They're out there. They all sit around. I saw the picture of Ward Manuel or the video of Ward Manuel. He was sitting down there, had his computer screen. They're acting like they're, working so hard. And, I'm sure they look through all the numbers and everything else. But look, all of us could be sitting on that committee and coming up with the, the best laid teams and what we want in there. Conference, blue blood, affiliations, money, ratings. They want to get those things in there. They're not talking about that. Boo Corrigan is not coming out saying, look, guys, this is all made for TV, just to generate interest. At the end, we want to put out the best 4 teams that are going to get us the highest rating so we make the most money. That's really what we want. So we're out here, and even though I'm up here, and even though all these guys, we're all sitting around and ordering rooms where we get great buffets and everything you can drink, and we've got all the numbers and everything. Let's be honest. This is all just a show. We know that. We know that if they really want, if it comes down to a one-loss team and they want to put Tennessee in, they can do whatever they want. And it's not necessarily going to be by, what they were saying. You could find a way for any team. People talk about hard and soft schedules. This is from AJ, where all the people with these hard schedules, the majority of them get knocked out week 1. AJ, a proponent for the cupcake schedules. He likes the cupcake schedule. Richard saying it's supposed to be really cold in Ann Arbor on Saturday. Yeah, it's cold. But out the last 2 days, it's I'm dressing like, it was what, feels like low 20s. That's the way it feels. That's no fun. Antoine, calling people names about scheduling a tough non-conference schedule. I don't care. You can call me whatever you want, Antoine. I like interesting games. I like, football games, but, like when you look like, hey, who do you want to watch this week? You know how many people wanted to watch Michigan besides Michigan fans in the first 3 weeks? Nobody. And so I know, like, I give them a pass, and I'm going to give them a pass next year. You know why? Because they're winning and they're doing well. If they weren't, I would look at them and say, man. And look, I don't have season tickets. Like, this is what you say, Antoine. This is what a lot of people say. They just love the Dubs. They don't care who Michigan could honestly, they could play the 3 worst teams in college football, and everybody would be like, good. We don't want to play hard teams. We play hard enough teams to begin with. Whatever your rationale is. People that pay for the tickets, they feel completely different than you do. And people that like to see big games, they feel completely different than you do. Like, I understand that once in a while that Michigan might lose one of those games. Like, if Michigan would have played at UCLA this year, they could have lost that game. But the part about playing in the big game, and just think if they had that feather in their cap right now. If Michigan had a victory at UCLA right now, they would be sitting there with all those other things, and everybody would say, look at all these trash schedules. Michigan definitely should be getting in there. They played, look at their strength of schedule. But, whatever, however it fits, you're consistent. You like the super easy teams. Maybe it just gets back to, I don't know if it's this way or not. When I play pickup basketball a lot, remember when I went to Easter, they have a grand thing in the intramural building. They had 4 full court basketball. They had 4 full court basketball courts available. And usually on 2 of them, you would have almost every time from 10 in the morning till 10 at night, you would have people running on 2 of them. On the 3rd one, sometimes. And on the 4th one, you just have people shooting at each end, getting up some shots. But if you went to the 3rd one, it would be people that, didn't play that much basketball, could barely even dribble it up. So, and then on the other one, you would have people that you'd say, hey, these are average, these guys play, and these guys are pretty good, it's competitive. And then you would have a number 1 court. And these guys, you would see some of the guys from the team, you'd have people coming over from Michigan, you'd have big time ballers. And you'd have guys that were playing in the pro, you'd have awesome games. I liked playing on the awesome court. Usually I was the 5th best guy and probably the 10th best guy, but I loved it. Getting out there and playing with the talent like that. Antoine would play on the 3rd court. Antoine would go over there and he'd tear everybody up, scoring. He'd take all the shots. It'd be really easy. Guy would come up on him and cross him over, score on him, post everybody up. Triple-double, 50 points, whatever. And he'd go home and he'd be real happy. And I'd see him afterwards. He'd say, how do you do it? I'd say, how'd I do it? I said, man, I hit a couple shots and won 3 or 4 games. And it was awesome. And he'd be like, I don't like playing the good competition. I like the real weak competition where I can just bowl them over. That's Antoine. Andre says Michigan would roll Notre Dame this year. Let's be real. Yeah, well, you got to play him. I mean, you can say anything you want, but, you got to play him. Count 22. These media heads are unwatchable. I don't know. Who else do you want in there? Account 22? Just to, pull 4 fans out there. Pull 4 people that like Michigan, put them in there. I don't know. Whatever committee would be on there or whoever talks about it, people aren't going to like things that they say about their teams, and they're going to say these guys suck. I mean, that's just how it goes. So, but you're just playing the game too, because you don't care. You're just criticizing them, and you criticize anybody that's up there. So what's it mean? Logan says big media would rather have 3 SEC teams in there than 2 Big Ten teams. Yeah, well, when you'd have to put quotations in big media because the Big Ten is in big media. And teams that are outside of the SEC in Big Ten, you know what they do, Logan? They all say everything surrounds the Big Ten and the SEC. It's the big 2 and then everyone else. That's the big media. The Big Ten media rights dwarf everybody else's. Their television rights are way better than the SEC, even though the SEC's won all the championships over the last 20 years, with the exception of 1 or 2. The Big Ten and their television contract, they're actually the champions out of all of this. So everyone else outside the Big Ten and SEC, they would completely disagree with what you're saying. But since we're in Big Ten country, and this is a Michigan, you're talking about, well, the SEC, they all want the SEC. And maybe that's just how it goes. You get just caught up in this. It just depends, what side of the bed you're waking up on and what country you're waking up on, and if you want to complain. I look at it like the Big Ten in Michigan, they don't take a back seat to anybody. Michigan, with their brand, with their history, with everything they've got going, they're not taking a back seat to anybody. Is the SEC getting a little favoritism with Heather Dinich and because they're, ESPN, because they have the SEC network, sure. Also, if the Big Ten had won as much as the SEC, we'd be sitting out here having a bunch of Paul Feinbaums and looking down at everybody else and telling them, you guys are also rants. We win every year. That's why we get ranked higher. That's why we deserve more teams in there. We win all the time. We've got the best coaches. We win all the championships. You guys have won one in basketball. You guys have won one championship in 22 years. In football, where's it at? So just remember all that. And I'm a proponent for the Big Ten here as well. I think the Big Ten does have a chance, and I've gone through it about having two teams in there. But let's not cry too much of a river for the Big Ten and, against the SEC. Okay. Andre says nobody cares about Heather. Well, I'm going to disagree with you there, Andres. She's has a hit on ESPN, on SportsCenter, and on the radio side. That's all she does. She's full time, and everybody knows who she is. She's got a big voice in college football, whether you like her or not. Not particularly like her this year when after the, Oregon game, she was out there and she put Oregon number 4. It was nonsensical. She looked very biased, but those how things go. Whoop up a little controversy. But if we're putting out who are the ranking the top 25 media personalities in college football, she's going to land in the top 25. So when you say nobody cares, I don't know. Who do you care about, Andres? I'm just arguing with everybody today. Who do you care about? It's not Herb Street. You want Desmond Howard. Let's get Devin Gardner. Those two guys. Michigan men. Let's get Rich Eisen. Let's get Eisen. Woodson, there's 4. Let's get those 4 guys along with Ward Manuel. There's 5. Let's have on the selection committee and put on the TV all the time. Devin Gardner, Desmond Howard, Charles Woodson, and Ward Manuel, and Rich Eisen. Rich Eisen's honking the Michigan horn all the time. I mean, he loves Michigan. He's an unabashed homer. He went to Michigan. He loves him. He doesn't care. Michigan fans love him. Who cares what everybody else thinks? Desmond Howard, he's been laughing and smiling about Michigan and making fun of Ohio State and Michigan State for 25 years. Woodson's running around with a flag before the game. Woo! Woo! Let's get all those guys out there. That's who should be on the media poll. That's who we want to see more of. All right, let's continue on. We went through the contingency plan. Let's get rid of that and go to basketball. You've got Michigan in action tonight at 6 o'clock. They're taking on Pitt. Michigan has played 2 games. Purdue, Fort Wayne. They had a 19-point victory over them and then a 5-point win over EMU. This game tonight is played in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. That's where the Nets play. It's on ESPNU. Michigan is favored by 9.5 points against the Panthers. So take that for what it's worth. Michigan almost a double-digit favorite. Why? Because Pitt, they won their first game by 22 points over UT Martin, but then they got popped against West Virginia by 25 points at home. And I looked at the box score, was looking through that. A lot of foul trouble, big scoring droughts by Pitt in that game, but they lost by 25 points to West Virginia. That's why Michigan is a 9.5-point favorite. If Michigan wins this game, they will play tomorrow at 7 o'clock against the winner of VCU and Arizona State. Each of these teams have a little bit of intrigue. Virginia Commonwealth is favored by 4. They're out of the A-10. But you may have forgotten, or you might know this, that Frankie Collins transferred from Michigan, the point guard last year, the freshman, and he went to Arizona State. In a couple games here, he's averaging the most minutes for the Sun Devils. He's averaging 16 points, 4 boards, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Frankie Collins, the former Wolverines, getting off for the Sun Devils in the 2 games. And I'm sure that Frankie Collins would love to stick it to Michigan tomorrow. And here's the thing. I don't know. I'm rooting for Virginia Commonwealth tonight. I don't want to see Frankie Collins at all. I don't want any part of a Frankie Collins revenge game. I would rather take on VCU and remember when Shaka Smart's Rams took on Michigan in the second round of the NCAA tournament back in 2013, and Michigan beat Shaka and VCU in that matchup, full court press, just blew them off the floor. And Michigan went to the Sweet 16 for the first time since '94 back then. Really started things off. The monster, Mitch McGary, had 21 and 14 in that game, if you remember. That's what I want to happen. I want to see VCU. I don't want Arizona State. Now, you might say, you sound a little bit like a hypocrite. You sound a little bit like, you want the easier path. You sound a little bit like Antoine. And I'll admit that. If you were somebody that said for entertainment value, you want the toughest team and you want to go through Frankie Collins because you want to show, like, okay, I get that. I get that. Am I always rooting for the toughest games and the most appealing games? Most appealing? I gotta say, like, if I was doing and I'll be on after both games right here, Michigan basketball post-game live, I think more people would watch if it was Michigan, Arizona State. If I was doing a call-in show or, you wanted to get calls, well, you'd want the most entertaining game and you'd want that revenge factor. So I get that. If you're like, I want to see Frankie, bring it on. Or you could be like me and Antoine. You want the easiest game tomorrow. That's where it's at. What's it look like for this weekend? Well, you got Michigan and Illinois at noon. A couple 3:30 games there with the number 1 and number 2 teams. Only two teams that look better than Michigan. Certainly the only 2 that are ranked higher than Michigan. Georgia's at Kentucky. Ohio State's on the road. They're going to Maryland. I don't smell any upsets or close games. Kind of flip back and forth between those 2 to see, if either Kentucky or Maryland can keep it close. And then you get into later that night, Ole Miss and Arkansas. Little SEC battle there. Close line. And 8 o'clock under the Rose Bowl. Be interesting to see how it's USC, UCLA. If you're a Michigan fan, you're pulling for UCLA. We already went through the reasons why. And the 2 future Big Ten teams going at it. So you got that going on. And the interesting part, will USC have more fans than UCLA? Yes. So that'll be cool to watch. So there's everything. Let's get to the feedback. The captain says he's convinced we're not running the same pass plays we're running in Columbus. We're just experimenting. Yeah, I know everybody has their theories, and I went through this yesterday, and I know people route trees, and I want to give you my opinion on why Michigan's downfield passing game has not really worked and clicked for 10 games. Is it scheme? Is it coaches? Is it the players? Yes, in that grab bag, yes. I will put it on 70% the quarterback and 30% on the wide receivers. I will put 0% on the coaches, which involves scheme, routes, play calling, whatever that they're going through. I put 0 on that. The wide receivers could get open a little bit better, no doubt about that. They can also catch the ball. We've went through some, Cornelius Johnson last game, Andrell Anthony, and the freshman Amarian Walker the game before against Rutgers. All three of those guys, two of them, no, three, Kojo, Anthony, and Walker. All three of those guys could have come up with good, really good catches, and could have helped out their quarterback. So I'll put 30% on the wide receivers, but I'm going to put 70% on the quarterback. I really like J.J. McCarthy. I think he's a fabulous quarterback. I like his makeup. I think Michigan can win it all with him. I think he's been getting better as the season goes along. I like his leadership. He's got a great arm. I love his dual threat ability. He's also been taking care of the football. I like all those things. He doesn't throw a really good deep ball. He, sometimes it's too hard. Sometimes it's too flat. Sometimes it's overshot, all of that. If you want to be a great quarterback in the NFL, you got to be able to put the ball on the receiver, throw him open, put him on it. So all of this other talk, everybody wants to talk about the coaches and the schemes and everything else. Take it from me. It's 70% of the QB, 30% of the wide receivers. The coaches and the scheme and the route trees have nothing to do with it. You can believe whatever you want. And I know that there's a lot of people that believe it's 70% of the coaches and 25% on the wide receivers and just 5 on JJ. Look at the trajectory of those passes. Look at the plane and the loft. Great quarterbacks, they throw their receivers open and they put it on the money and they just drop it in there. So on those deep balls, ooh, it's a thing of beauty to be able to watch. And against Iowa, there was a throw to Andrell Anthony, probably about 30 yards down the left sideline on the seam. JJ just put it in there. Great throw. Awesome. He also threw in the second half, what would it have been against, I think it was against Indiana. He threw one down the right side to Ronnie Bell, where he put a little loft and about 25 yards down the right sideline, dropped it right in there. Bell took it down there for 40 yards. Very nice. Exactly what you're doing. So, he's capable. It's like not every throw is coming in hot and is coming in with the wrong pace. It's hard to do. Talking about him being like, perfect, not even perfect, being great. I don't know if anybody's perfect. He's really good at a lot of things, not the deep ball. I can accept it. Now, if you want people that cover Michigan, if they're looking to make excuses or, coming up, I'm just telling you how I feel about it. I don't think he's great at throwing the deep ball. And I think it's 70% on him. Am I going to harp on it and everything, And I already said, I think Michigan can beat Ohio State, and I think they can win it all with how they are currently constructed and how they're playing. Ball control, great defense, awesome special teams. It's a recipe where they can beat any team out there. Are they, as they sit right now, going to be the favorite against Ohio State? No. As it sits right now, if they win a couple games and they're playing the national championship game against Georgia and they're not throwing the ball down the field and it kind of looks like it has the previous 10 games, will they be favored against Georgia? No. But they could beat those teams, and it's not like there's some decided underdog, like, oh, my God, this is going to be like Villanova against Georgetown in 1985. No, it's not going to be like that at all. They're the underdog, but they're going to be a single-digit underdog against Ohio State and Georgia if that happens. And I'll say it one more time. If they were in the last two games able to connect on some of those passes and the wide receivers were able to come up, we'd be talking about Michigan being the favorite against Ohio State. We'd be talking about them being the favorite to win it all, even over Georgia. So that's where it's at. That's how I feel about the passing game and where Michigan sits with just 2 regular season games remaining and the possibility to play 3 more after that. That's how I see it. Now, I don't expect everyone to see it exactly like me, but that's how I see it. Let's see how other people are seeing it. South Carolina can kill 2 birds with 1 stone next week. I like where you're at, CP. Let's see what old Detwa has to say. This is formerly Third Minded. He says all people see outside Ann Arbor is a plus brand that plays B plus national ball on the field. I conceded that Ohio is our championship, like MSU thinks we are theirs. Well, in a lot of ways, I think that's true, but I do think that Michigan wants to win the national championship, and in other, like last year, I didn't think that was really. I mean, they made the college football playoffs, so anything can happen, and they should have gone up against Cincinnati, so they could have been in the championship game. But I do think Detwa, mostly you're right about that, with the exception of this year, the goal has been to win it all. And what we've seen from Alabama this year, and yeah, Georgia, the number one team, and Ohio State, and what we've seen from Michigan, this is a year where Michigan has a very viable shot to win it all. I'll take you back to August, early August. Jim Harbaugh went to Indianapolis and he stood up on the stage. And Jim Harbaugh didn't say, yeah, we got a lot of goals, but we're not going to talk about them up here with you. Jim Harbaugh didn't say that we're just, we're not looking past Colorado State in the opener. We're taking them one game at a time. You know what Jim Harbaugh did? Let's put it up on the screen. Jim Harbaugh said, here are our goals in 2022. Jim Harbaugh said, we want to beat Michigan State. Job done. We want to beat Ohio State. We'll see what they do a week from this Saturday. Jim Harbaugh went on. We want to win the Big Ten again in Indianapolis, and we want to win the national championship. That's what Jim Harbaugh said. Those are Michigan's goals this year. A lot of times it is like, just beat Ohio State, everything's great. Not the case this year. It's different, and especially the way things have played out as we sit here right now. It's realistic that they have an opportunity to do this. All right. Let's see what the folks have to say here before we go. Count 22 says OSU beats 1-7 Northwestern by 14. It was the weather. A little bit of that. AJ still talking about cupcakes. Count 22 also talking about the media protecting Ohio State more than Georgia. Georgia dropped the 2 spots after beating Kent State by only 18. Yeah, Ohio State, you know what you do when you say the media, you're in business, you want ratings. The most popular teams and the best brands, they get the breaks. Unfortunately, Ohio State, as much as Michigan's brand is national and everything else, Ohio State's in football a little bit higher. They won a national championship. They get to the college football playoff. They beat Michigan almost every time in the 21st century. You get a lot of cachet for that. It's how things work in sports. Catch 22. I don't know, like people don't want to hear, they don't want to take all the medicine or hear the hard truth. You want to hear some, maize and blue massage and everything. There's plenty of podcasts that will give it to you like this. I don't know if that, if you're watching or not. But the truth is in sports, it's a good thing to think about boxing because, boxing, as much as they got a bunch of stuff that's going on, there's a lot of things that are true, that's true in boxing. And one of them you may have heard is that you got to knock out the champ to beat the champ. You say, well, that's not very fair. What about the scoring? They should just take into account if it's a 12-round prize fight and they're the equal on everybody's card, it gets to I guess it can't be, but if it's you've got some, you get to the 10th round and it's even on both cards, you should take the 11th and 12th round into account. You know what happens? You have to knock out the champ to beat the champ. That's how it goes in sports. You know what other thing people don't like in boxing? When Antoine is when the champ ducks challengers. And we get why they do it. They like the cupcakes. They like the couple easy paydays. That's what a non-conference is. That's ducking opponents to try to get into a championship. And we allow it. And I'm giving Michigan a pass for ducking opponents this year. But, hey, that's where it's at. Great players and great teams get the calls. Justin Verlander, he gets that outside pitch more than your average pitcher. The great hitter, it works that way. In hockey, you'll get a penalty call when you're Wayne Gretzky or Steve Yzerman over, an all-star. That's how things work in sports. It's like that in every single sport. Do I think that played into the referee in 2016, where Ohio State had beaten Michigan so many times and it came down to that last call? You got to beat the champ to knock out the champ to beat the champ. Do I think that also, being in front of 90,000 truck drivers could also have influenced them in a play that was razor thin and could have gone either way? I do think. I understand that could have factored in and easily why it could have gone Ohio State's way. But that's how I look at things. If you want to this day, cry about like, oh, he was short, forever. A lot of people that are Michigan fans be like, yeah, that's right, he was short. A lot of other people look at that and say, you're a homer and can't look at things fairly. And it doesn't matter. It's sports. Whatever entertains you. You like being a big homer and always just thinking like Michigan's getting jobs? That's great. You want to look at things evenly? And it's hard because a lot of people are biased. Most people are biased. Hell, I'm biased. Just not as biased as a lot of other people that are out there. All right. We're getting after it here. Steven says it's the committee is what makes the current system untenable. Well, I don't know. I think that the committee every year has gotten it right. The first year, I thought putting Ohio State in was a little bit dicey. But you know what? Or was it the second year? Ohio State won it. They were able to validate what the committee did by putting a brand in front of some other schools that deserve to be in there by winning the whole thing. So we could talk about it being untenable and these guys, just sitting around eating buffets and, doing whatever, but they've gotten the 4 teams right every year. Now, maybe not like I thought Michigan should have played Cincinnati last year. So maybe not the exact order, but the 4 teams I think they've gotten right every year. It's something to argue about and something to have fun about, Stephen. But let's not make it sound like these guys are, complete bozos and everybody's on the take and like they have no idea or they're just pulling names out of a hat. And even though we know that they're bowing down to their affiliations and they're biased and they want the best ratings, they've gotten it right. It's a really easy job. I want that job. You really do whatever the hell you want. And, they're all Teflon and it's pretty easy. It's really easy right now. There's 4 undefeated teams in the Power 5. Those are going to be the top 4 teams. Shocker. I'm looking forward to when they go to 12. All right. We have a few more here. And let's just blow through them. I'll give you 1 sentence and 1 sentence only on the remaining feedback. Detwa says, think about it. Only one time beat a top program in the Midwest is when Lloyd Card was going to retire and threw it all over the place against Tebow in Florida. They've never beat a top team. Well, that's not true. Oh, you say out of the Midwest? Did Lloyd Carr ever beat a team out of the Midwest in the non-conference in his years that he was there? He'd won a couple of those. But no, Lloyd Carr was very conservative, and he was not a pass-first guy. He was, run the football like what, Michigan is now. He did not like throwing it around and playing like, teams. He was behind the times on that. And you're right. Against Florida, he was able to do it. That's more than 1 sentence. I'm not sticking even with my first 1. Richard wants a 16 or at minimum 12. I'm against the 16, but 12 is good. AJ says the essential argument between other schools who also have cupcakes, they're mad because our cupcakes are more tasty and have more frosting. I don't know. If you look at, not every team is like that. Most of the teams are like, there is some truth to it. So, I don't know. Michigan has the lowest strength of schedule out of the 4 teams. I mean, it's a fact. And if you want to look at how they compute the strength of schedule, Antoine wants to be in the playoffs. I get that. Works for basketball. This is football. 59-0 pulling starters in the third quarter against UConn. Ain't looking too bad now. Yeah, but the narrative has been, that's the thing. Like, the narrative all off season was, look at Michigan's non-conference schedule. It blows. They're playing no Power 5. They're playing the 3 worst teams in football. So even when UConn comes out and has a halfway decent season, nobody's going back. They're still looking at that. Reese Davis seems like a pretty, like, I know you'll all say, no, he's a clown. He's working for ESPN. He's totally on the take. He's totally biased. He comes on the basketball game between Michigan State last night and Kentucky, and Vitale asked him about Michigan. He says, yeah, Michigan played a weak non-conference schedule. That's a narrative. That's a theme. He wasn't saying anything about UConn now, being bowl eligible. I mean, nobody was saying any of that. So it has stuck with him. All right. Let's see what else we can come up with here. We want Antoine on the committee. Antoine would just be saying, the teams we played, you guys played a bunch of clowns. Our clowns are just a little bit more clownish. We've got just a little bit bigger red nose and bigger shoes. Yeah, the money talks. SEC. I think that we're kind of saying the same thing here. Yeah, everybody's biased. Let's get Desmond. Let's get Joel Klatt in there as well. With Woodson. Here, Cal 22 wants to put me on there. Hey, you know what? I'll get out of everybody's way. I'll just say, hey, Joel, let me take that car for a ride that you got out there. Woodson. I like Woodson. I'd say, Woodson, let's pop the cork on some of that wine you have. Let me try maybe 1 glass of that wine. Brady Quinn. I don't want him in there. He's the best out of the Big Noon 4 guys. I don't know. I like Leinart. Andre's going to say something about Urban Myers. Urban Myers. Like Urban Meyer. Condescendingly favorable towards Michigan. There's no doubt. Urban Urban Meyer is a little biased, Logan's looking forward to the post-game show tonight. I'm in, man. Logan, 6:00 afterwards. After it's done, we will talk. Hey, man, good to see you. D. Brown gets in late. Ohio State wants to beat us just as bad. Oh, yeah, they want to beat Michigan just as bad. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Yeah, tonight, after the basketball game, after Pitt, we'll crank it up. Turn on the live button and start talking about what happened during the game. Then we'll do it again tomorrow night. Tomorrow during the day, we'll be here, and we'll crank it up. And if you missed the post-game lives, we'll be on here talking as we are here on Good Afternoon Michigan football and basketball at 1:00, and that's where we'll be coming up later on tonight, tomorrow afternoon, and then tomorrow evening. That's a lot of broadcasting, but we're here for it, and we got and we have lots to talk about. So we don't just sit around talking about cupcakes and SEC bias. There'll be some other things to put into the mix as well. Until tonight, after the game. See you then. Bye.